Hey guys, it's Alex from 7th Hour Films, and today I'm going to be reviewing the 4 seasons of the show called Static Shock. You might have heard of this show. It's from the early 2000s. It's about the, well, now DC superhero Static. Yeah, so I just got done watching all the episodes, all 52 of them, and yeah, we're just going to talk about it. So basically the premise of Static Shock, it's your basic kind of superhero show. It starts off with the origin of everyone's powers. It's kind of similar to the Flash TV show where there's this big thing that happens, there's this event that causes a lot of people to get powers, including our hero, Virgil Hawkins, who then becomes Static. Never called Static Shock, which is interesting, but whatever. So yeah, he kind of becomes, well, he does become this superhero. He's really, like, one of the few metahumans that actually doesn't try to abuse their powers, similar to the Flash. But this, I would say Static Shock is a lot, I mean, just kind of getting into this now. I know I didn't give much plot there, but, I mean, basically, it's your basic superhero show. There's a Freak of the Week. There's a new metahuman, well, not a new metahuman every week, but every episode is dealing with a different metahuman. And yeah, so it's your basic kind of, you know, Flash, Arrow kind of show, you know, just a superhero show. And there's honestly not too much I could give away about the plot. It doesn't really get, like, super story intensive. The only things, like, I could say is that the first 2 seasons is basically just Static, and then seasons 3 and 4 he gets a partner. You can probably tell who his partner is going to be very easily, but I don't know. I suppose I didn't guess that right off the bat. But in the first 2 seasons he has his buddy Richie, who's basically yeah, every superhero kind of has someone, like, on the sidelines that is, yeah, that's helping them out and stuff, and that's basically Static's friend Richie. So, so that's basically the plot, I could say, for Static, is that it's just a pretty basic superhero show. Occasionally, there would be, I suppose, bigger episodes, you know, more than just, like, street-level superhero stuff, where Static will, like, meet up with people from the Justice League, because Static Shock was bought out by DC Comics, so he became part of the DC animated universe. And so yeah, like, occasionally Batman will come in, or there's an episode with the Green Lantern. There's just an episode with the Justice League. A couple episodes, actually, with the Justice League. So that kind of happens, and that's kind of it for plot, I could say. I'm not sure how long this video is going to be. We're kind of, I think we're on like 3 or 4 minutes now. So I don't know how much I'm really going to talk about it. But yeah, so it's interesting with this show is that it very much feels like what I think SpiderMan should be, and I'll explain that, because SpiderMan is supposed to be, you know, he's a teenager. The reason SpiderMan was created to be more relatable to teenagers, to younger readers, and that's completely fine. And, you know, he was basically just a teenager. He was going through teenager stuff while also being a superhero. He became very relatable. That's why he's a lot of people's favorite superheroes. Not mine. I still like Spider-Man, but he's not my favorite. But I feel like, I kind of feel like the movies haven't captured that. Sony and, well, I can't really say anything about Marvel because Spider-Man Homecoming is not out yet. And I'm not going to see it in theaters, so I'm not going to review it. If, like, I'm gonna watch it when it comes to, like, Amazon or Netflix. So if I really like it, then I'll make a video saying I liked it and I'll eat my words. But we're not here to talk about that. So yeah, with the other Spider-Man movies, I feel like they really haven't captured Spider-Man in a way that Static Shock did. I almost feel like Spider-Man shouldn't be movies, it should be a show like Spider-Man. Because you have this very street-level hero. You know, he's a teenager, he still goes through teenager stuff. He's, you know, he has to go through high school, all that kind of stuff. Keeping his secret from his family and his friends. And that is all, you know, fun and static, but I don't feel like they really do that in the Spider-Man movies. I think they definitely try, but I don't... And maybe it's because Spider-Man might not have as many friends as Static Shock does. Well, Static Shock is just the name of the show. His superhero name is just Static. Again, I don't understand that. But with Static, there's a lot of people he's keeping his identity from. His dad, his sister, his two friends. You know, the only character who really knows who Static is Richie. And you know, there is always the one character that knows. But it's not like on The Flash, which is a good example, where everyone knows who the Flash is. It's like it's crazy how many people actually know who the Flash is, or in Arrow, how many people know who the Green Arrow is. And again, you know, those shows are kind of playing with that, saying that, well, to make more interesting storylines, we don't need there to be a really secret identity. Obviously, they still have the secret identity from the mass public, but it's like, for most of these characters, we don't need to keep going with the secret identity thing. I'm not sure if I totally agree with that, but here, on Static, they definitely keep the whole secret identity thing. That goes on pretty much... The only time a character will learn who Static is, besides Richie, who he tells in the first episode, the only other time a character finds out who Static is, it's in the second to last episode. So yeah. And that's, again, kind of another thing with the Spider-Man movies, is that I feel like all the elements are there, they're not executed properly. It's like, Peter is in high school. Alright, what are the challenges of being in high school and being a superhero? Or in the Maguire films, the earlier Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire, he eventually goes off to college. Alright, what stuff can you do there with that? I don't feel like they fully go with everything they set up, whereas Static Shock does. So, I know I'm critiquing like 10 million things in this video. This video's kind of all over the place, but basically this is basically all just praise for Static Shock for basically doing what Spider-Man wants to do. And again, maybe they'll do that in Spider-Man Homecoming. I have no idea. But Static Shock really did it well. The only thing I can say about Static Shock that I think Spider-Man does a little better are the villains. Not to say that the villains in Static Shock are bad or anything. Well, at the very least, is like, we have sort of this core group of metahumans who keeps, you know, getting into trouble and Static has to keep going. They're basically the regulars. There are a ton of other metahumans that keep coming in and stuff that Static has to stop. But there is like a core group that the show kind of always falls back on. And they're okay, but there's not really a good rivalry between them and Static. Particularly their leader, Ebon. He's really just the most recurring villain on the show, but I don't feel like he's given a lot to do. And I don't think he's... Like, the villains on Static Shock are not that memorable. Whereas Spider-Man, you got very memorable villains. For the most part, I wouldn't say all of them, but like, Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin, Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, and granted, these are big name actors, but they still left an impression where these villains can. They were still written very well. You know, even the Sandman is kind of memorable. Electro is very memorable in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. So, and I'm sure Michael Keaton is going to be memorable in Spider-Man Homecoming. But they have memorable villains. Static really doesn't. But what is memorable, this is kind of where I'm going to knock... Well, this is another thing, another criticism I have of Static Shock, is that the guest stars in this show are ridiculous. They're not all bad. Like there is one, like, they brought in the rapper Little Romeo, and it made sense why they brought him in, because he did the second theme song to the show. Alright, you're doing the theme song, why don't you get an episode? Alright, cool. They did an episode where Shaquille O'Neal was a guest star. Okay, why is Shaq suddenly here and he's helping Static Shock with superhero stuff? But it's actually not a terrible episode. There is one episode that has, with these, celebrity guest stars, which is what I should have specified in the beginning. These are celebrity guest stars, not just, random who cares. But, these are celebrities. There's one episode, it's later on, I think it's in season 4. The episode is titled Hoop Squad. It was not a good episode, and it was really, really stupid, and I didn't get it. I was like, okay, here are these 4 basketball players, also they're superheroes for some reason, because they play basketball. It's like, what? Don't do that, man. Just, like, I actually didn't mind the Shaq, episode, because at first it was just like, oh, and here's Shaq, isn't that amazing? But, I mean, Shaq was still pretty cool. I mean, he was written well. I don't know if he had a part in that or anything. But they didn't really... I mean, obviously he was forced in, but I don't feel like he was very forced in. Like, they didn't make Shaq a superhero. They just made him what he is. He's a big guy. He's super tall. He's bound to help out. He should be able to help out with metahumans, and he does. Yeah, other than that, there's not, like, too many criticisms I can really give to Static. I suppose another thing to talk about is that occasionally they'll do a PSA, which, it makes sense. Like, at the end of the episode, Static will address the audience and stuff like that. Those are okay. I don't think they were really necessary, especially in the episodes that have PSAs. There's a wide range of them. There's a later episode about dyslexia. Okay, like one of the heroes is actually dyslexic, and they kind of deal with that. It was a good episode. At the end, Static comes out and is like, if you have a problem with dyslexia, go talk to someone and stuff like that. It's like, alright, you didn't need that. Or like, there's actually a really good episode about racism. It's a bit earlier on, it's seasons 1 or 2, I'm not really sure which one. But there's an excellent episode about racism. Interesting. I didn't think that would happen in this kind of show, but, it was good, it was well handled, I thought. And then at the end, oh wait, was that a different, yeah, that's a different episode. Excuse me, I don't think there was a PSA at the end of the racism episode. I'm combining episodes in my head. The other one I was thinking about was actually a bullying episode, which was okay. I thought it was good. It was good, I didn't think it was great. But the episode was about bullying, and at the end, the kid got a gun. The kid that was being bullied got a gun and actually shot someone. And at the end of that episode, Static addresses the audience, and he's like, it's basically a PSA, be careful with your guns, don't, get a gun and try to shoot people. And it's like, these PSAs, the PSAs are not bad by any means. I just feel like sometimes they're a little forced. Like, maybe the dyslexia one was a little forced. Now, the gun violence, I can give that a pass. It's like, alright, you know, cool. You know, you're telling kids not to, you know, mess with guns. Great. But sometimes, the dyslexia one was like, alright, you're just... You know, we had this, you know, nice episode where one of the characters dealt with dyslexia, and now you're just coming out and saying dyslexia stuff. I don't know if that made any sense to you just now, but, anyway, so overall thoughts. I know this video has been a very scatterbrained video, but my overall thoughts on Static Shock is, it was good. I think it really captured what Spider-Man wanted to be, or what Spider-Man wants to be, and I think it did it a lot better than that. So yeah, it's really good. Again, some exceptions. It's really just a couple episodes, I'd say, that are bad or just too goofy. I mean, even at its worst, Static Shock is not really a bad show. So, I mean, that's a pretty good recommendation. Yeah, if you're curious about it, I would go give all 4 seasons a watch. And if you do watch all 4 seasons and you want a bit more Static Shock, you can watch Young Justice, because eventually Static shows up in that. Spoilers, kind of. Yeah, that is pretty much it. Oh yeah, I forgot. End cards are going to pop up right about now. Haven't done this in a little while. You can click on those, you can subscribe, you can follow 7th Hour Films on Twitter, at 7th Hour Films, and that is pretty much it. I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.